Alright, picking up on chapter 6 of Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. Please enjoy the narration as I try not to bumble this up. I know that I am, but bear with me. I wipe the tears from my face, the wetness soaking into my lined skin, and drag Jack to bed, pulling him up onto our black patchwork quilt and place his domed head carefully on the pillow. Zero hovers beside Jack, not wanting to leave his side, whimpering softly, but I stand up and walk to the French doors that open out onto the terrace. The air is strangely quiet, the sun casting late afternoon ribbons of light through the surrounding limbless trees, and I stand at the railing, peering out over Halloween Town, trying to understand. A coldness settles within me, a numbing ache, like passing through the cemetery and feeling an onward ghost slip beneath my skin. Jack is asleep. The whole town is asleep. But why? My mind circles back, retracing the moments that led me here. When I fled Halloween Town into the woods, everyone was still awake. Bustling with preparations. But something happened while I was gone. A riddle whispered in the darkness. A riddle I don't have all the pieces to solve. A mystery hidden in the grains of sand I found on Jack and others. But in the silence there is another thought, disloyal and treacherous, a stitch deep feeling that creeps up from somewhere foreign inside my ribcage. A quiet Halloween town is a relief. There is an odd peace in the silence, in the lack of voices, in the cold air, void of all sound. I glance back through the doorway where the yards of fabric from the witch sisters still lay across the floor, along with batwing hats and high-heeled shoes made of gargoyle bones and foul-smelling fish leather. I can still feel Helgrim's clawed fingers tugging through my not quite right hair. Zeldaborn pricking one of the sewing pins, tucking and folding the fabric around my waist across my chest, poking new needles along my flesh. I can still see the mare frenzied gaze as they rattle off my queenly duties. Feel the eyes of the crowd as they shouted my name, tugging at my dress, the flash of a camera in my face, all of it like an autumn storm churning around me, as if I belong to them now, a token queen to prod and touch. Once again, Sally, if you didn't want the job, why did you marry Jack? You can't marry a doctor and then complain that your husband is a doctor and is hardly ever home. Whatever. But now they are all asleep and everything is perfectly exceptionally wondrously quiet. For the first time since Jack and I returned from our honeymoon, the heart settles in my chest, the tension in my jaw softens, all of my threads seems loosens, just a little, like a corset being unknotted at my spine. I am alone, except for Zero. And the solitude feels like a warm bath I want to sink down into, toes curled, bubbles gathered, and popping against my tired flesh. Oh, there's enough fan art of you, honey. You don't need to paint that vivid of a picture. I walk back inside the bedroom and gather up the yards of fabric and 2 tall shoes, and I stuff them into the closet, barely able to close the door against the gathered horde. The breath in my chest is suddenly oddly calm. My eyes glance around the bedroom as if seeing it for the first time, a room that is just a room, not a royal jail, soothed by the unnatural quiet. I move through the tomb silent house, touching the black widow wallpaper and carved magpie candelabras. In the kitchen, I brew a cup of black milkweed tea. The sound of the kettle is the only sound echoing along the narrow walls. I stand on in the front porch, gazing out at the noiseless town, watching the moon begin to rise, a full-blown white orb, day turn into night. Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, honey. You're kind of not taking the situation, seriously. Your husband's blacked out. The entire town is blacked out. And you're making tea. Okay. I feel selfish. Yeah, no shit. Somehow, a crime, those stolen moments of silence, especially with Jack asleep upstairs, the person I wish was standing beside me, solving this unexpected quiet. But just for a moment, I let myself imagine what it might be like to walk down the street alone, without the eyes of the others judging every tilt of my head. Ugh. Yeah. Or the slumber slack of my jaw, calling me by the name that is a knife against my eardrums. Queen, I can read each last book in Jack's library without a single interruption, gather herbs from the garden without anyone scolding me for the dirt on my royal shoes, or the hem of a new sewing gown. Oh, newly sewn gown. Yep. I feel indignant to long for such things. I wished for a time before a sovereign title that sit, wait on my shoulders like more stones drooped around from the fountain. But leaning against the porch rail, I let my dull eyes drift close, listen to the soundless echoes that stretch over Halloween Town, the stir of the leaves, the hiss of the cold autumn wind, and nothing else but some practical working of magic. I have gotten exactly what I wanted. Silence, to be left alone, but for how long? Okay, Sally, you are definitely acting like a selfish B word right now. I'm just saying. My eyes lift. My eyes flit open as I breathe in the evening air. When a sound reaches my ears, soft and muttering, I squint through the darkness and notice the stray black cat, a cat that often wanders the streets at night, perhaps appearing from the shadows, slacking around the bars of the iron gates in front of the house. She lets out a low meowing sound, and I hurry down to the stone path. When I kneel beside her, she arcs her back, letting me run my fingers through her inky black coat. Were you here when everyone fell asleep? I murmur to her. She purrs from deep within her gut. She scratches at her ears, wishing she could tell me what she saw, what happened here while Zero and I were in the woods. But then her pointed ears twitch away from me, watchful eyes cast out towards the town square. She hears something, or sees something. Then I hear it too, a sound that begins as a low hush hush like water against granite. I stand up, perhaps someone else is awake. Cyclops or under seagull? Under seagull. Oh, the creature of the Black Lagoon chick. Cautiously, I push open the gate and take a few small steps into the opening. The sound grows closer. Hush, whoosh. I open my mouth to call out, to ask who's there, who might still be awake, when the black cat suddenly darts away through the metal gate and vanishes into the dark alley behind the house. My eyes rove across the town square, trying to see what's there, but the murk of the shadow and wind makes tricks of the dark. A statue or wall A statue or a wall becomes into focus, only to be swallowed up again by the night. A moment later, a tree limb looks like a giant hand reaching along across the street. It's none of it real, none of it something to fear. Until it comes to view, a thing appearing from the far corners of Town Hall. At first, it's hard to describe, to separate from the night. It has the quality of moonlight, pale and shadowy, all at once, as if it's made of a semi-darkness, the moment just after twilight. It hovers just slightly above the ground, a foot or two, maybe a little more. A man-shaped creature, 2 armed and 2 legs, with a long white beard, long enough to fall well below his waist, and wisps of white hair sticks out wildly from his head He's wrapped in a layered garment of colors of clouds, soft whitish gray, similar to a cloak or a robe folded around his tall, spindly frame in a way that's hard to tell where the fabric begins and ends. He has the appearance of an old wise man who might be prone to tell tall tales late into the night, or someone who might walk or float with a cane and drink large cups of swamp gray tea while he recounts the stories of his youth. But his face tells a different story. He looks as if he's just crawled up out of an open coffin. Thick, unkempt eyebrows slumped together, his mouth pushed downwards with curious cuts into his forehead, and dark crescent moon-shaped shadows sag beneath both eyes. Yeah. He reminds me of an undead, newly risen, and from where I stand in the shadows, I think that's perhaps what he is. One of the old bodies buried in the cemetery, raised a few days too early. Before All Hallows Eve, an accidental awakening, maybe his eyes snapped wide while he was still clamped shut inside his coffin, and he was forced to dig his way free to the surface. Surely anyone would look as terrifying after finding themselves buried 6 feet underground with no ladle or shovel in sight. I softened my gaze, feeling suddenly sorry for the poor fellow, and watch as he roams town hall, drifting closer to the fountain. I am about to step out from the shadows where I'm hiding, when I notice something spilling out behind him. Soft, flaky, that catches in the dull moonlight like tiny fallen stars, like sand. The air flutters in my throat, and I sink back into the darkness, into the shadows beside the gate. Sand. The floating white-bearded man reaches in. Reacts. The witch sisters, then leads over them as he tests to see if they were really asleep. He pokes a finger at Hildegrim's nose and then peers at Zeldaborn's bird-like eyes. Watching for any movement, he reaches into a hidden pocket inside his pale robe and then puffs out his cheeks before a long blow across his palm. A cloud of shimmering white sand engulfs Zeldaborn's face, running down around her. The white-haired man waits a moment, watching, but Zeldaborn does not stir, does not twitch, does not awake. She is fully intractably asleep. Satisfied, the creature spins around and properly leaves the town square, drifting in the distance of Dr. Finkelstein's observatory. I try not to move to make even the teensiest of sounds. As I watch him disappear into the darkness, I suck in a breath, then another, my eyes able to blink, wanting to be sure he's really gone. Then I turn and bolt up the stairs back into the house. All my threads clench together, my seams and my stomach twist and sharp, and I race up these spiraling stairs, nearly stumbling onto the top step, then scramble into our bedroom. Zero is still hovering over Jack's sleeping body, refusing to move. I sink down into the bed. Jack, I hiss, kneeling over him, arms shaking, my eyes flickering at the window, watching for the gray-haired man. Jack, there's something out there. I grab his shoulders with both my hands, rattle him, urging him to wake up, pleading, but he only flops in my arms, then slumps back into bed, his white skull unmoved. Tears break over my eyelids, and a white hot panic rises into my chest, a feeling that begins to flood through my entire body, fear and something else, a rotten, terrifying knife-edged guilt. I had thought it wasn't so bad letting everyone sleep just for a little while. It had felt like a gift, like the midnight stars had bestowed this unusual quiet on me. But now I understand it was never lock, stock, and barrel who did this, as I first thought. Everyone is asleep because there is a monster in Halloween Town. Yeah, so Sandman, I think we all know who that's supposed to be, going around putting people to sleep. And you, Sally, were all too content with just sitting on your butt, letting him get away with it for at least a whole day that we know of. I mean, you seriously went to make tea while everyone was asleep. All right. Well, that will complete Chapter 6. We will be picking back up at a later date. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, please. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.